What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today we have another edition of the Overthinking MTG podcast, the unscripted, unedited show where I look at an individual Magic card and talk about it for a while. And today we are looking at Sarulf Realm Eater. Now, there are a couple of reasons that we're looking at this card. One, it's interesting. It's an older card that never really found a home, and I don't know, I haven't visited it, or I haven't revisited it in a while, so I kind of am curious, is it any good? But also, this was actually requested. Actually, I have a lot of reasons for reviewing this one. It was also requested yesterday in the comment section of the video that I posted then about Colossus Hammer. I shared an anecdote about Colossus Hammer in yesterday's video, and somebody asked, hey, could you do an episode on Sarulf, the Realm Eater? And you know what? It's funny. I was actually thinking, like, well, I need to do another episode of Overthinking, and I didn't have one in the can, so I was like, well, yeah, why not? And the card's really cool. Additionally, there is art that Wizards of the Coast shared with us on Twitter recently. Actually, I believe it was just earlier yesterday as you're watching this, or today as I'm recording this, that shows Kaldheim being invaded by the Phyrexians. And the artwork is pretty shocking. And in it, there is a figure that looks an awful lot like Sarulf. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up on the screen now for those of you watching the video feed on YouTube. Yeah, so this is the Phyrexian invasion on Kaldheim. You'll notice, you know, we have the Viking-style long ships. Things are looking pretty gnarly. We also see the roots of the seed core, the twisted Phyrexian world tree burrowing into all these different worlds. It's really kind of horrifying, if I'm honest. But there are two major, very large, imposing figures that are presented in the, you know, kind of, well, in the mid ground here. Mid ground, is that what it's called? In fact, I don't know. I'm not a graphic artist. Anyway, we see on the left-hand side we have a figure that's clearly Toski, the squirrel that we know who would scurry about and carry like messages and things across the different realms throughout the trees or throughout the limbs of the world tree on Kaldheim. Toski's freaking awesome. We love that squirrel. I do anyway. And it's a bummer to see Toski completed here by the Phyrexians. We know, and the reason that is very clearly Toski, you'll notice the incredibly long, kind of flat ribbon-like tail. That is something that's very unique to Toski's design, and so I feel very confident that is who we're looking at here. And it's clear, like, the figure is much spinier. Their colors went from kind of this like muted, very earthy green to all of a sudden being like dark and red, like black and red, which is like, that's not good. Yeah, they look super Phyrexian, super Phyrexian. But on the right-hand side, we also see another figure that is larger than life. It is some kind of quadruped animal, and given the context, I'm pretty confident that is Sarulf, the Realm Eater, the wolf, the cosmic wolf on Kaldheim that we're talking about today. So it's interesting that Sarulf and Toski both have been taken over by Phyrexia. That's kind of horrifying too, because both of these beings are these large, like, they're not actually gods per se, but they're incredibly powerful, large, you know, imposing forces of nature effectively. You know, we see in every image depicting, or every instance that, you know, we experience Sarulf in the story, they're larger than life. This monstrous force that is, I believe, at one point described as like living at the end of the world or something crazy. Like, it's a big mythological monster, and it's clearly also just like, let's call it what it is. This is a top-down design based on the Norse mythology character of Fenrir, who is like no big deal, just the creature that kills Odin at Ragnarok. I guess, spoiler warning for anybody who didn't know Norse mythology as it relates to Ragnarok. Fenrir's a big freaking deal, so of course the magic equivalent is a big deal as well. So let's get to the card itself. The original card that was printed in Kaldheim was a rare. It was a 3/3 for 3, 1 black green, my favorite color combination, for a legendary wolf. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Sarulf Realm Eater. At the beginning of your upkeep, If Sarulf has one or more +1/+1 counters on it, you may remove all of them. If you do, exile each other non-land permanent with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of counters removed this way. So the design is interesting. It also, and actually now that I'm reading it and looking at it again with kind of fresh eyes, I talked about it like when Call Time was coming out, you know, at this point, I believe 2 years ago, like it was some time ago. And I thought that, actually, was it longer ago than that? In any event, the card was always interesting to me, but I'm now realizing one key flaw in this card that makes it difficult to really, I don't know, a part of why I think it never really saw home. That ability, the triggered ability on upkeep, you remove the counters and blow up the board, is very, very powerful. Because you can exile everything. Sarulf cannot exile itself, which is great. It's also an exile, not a destroy, so it gets around indestructible and those kinds of things. So that is a powerful effect. However, in order to fuel that, in order to get the +1/+1 counters on Sarulf, unless you're doing other +1/+1 counter shenanigans, because there are tons of ways to get those counters going. So if you're doing that, then disregard what I'm about to say. But if you're not doing that, to get these counters on Sarulf to begin with, you have to be destroying your opponent's things. You know, your opponent's, and oddly enough, they have to be destroyed, not exiled. So if you're destroying your opponent's permanents already, it makes it, I don't know, it's odd that the payoff is destroy a bunch of their permanents. Because you've already been doing that. So in order for Sarulf to be strong, you have to be blowing up your opponent's board like throughout the course of the game. So by the time you actually have an opportunity to pop this off and wipe the board, they already don't have anything, or they presumably have very little, to the point where if you're successful in getting the +1/+1 counters on Sarulf, then wanting to hit that emergency release valve and actually blow everything up is you're probably not gonna do that. That said, in Commander, this could be fantastic alongside a whole bunch of controlling removal spells. If you have a ton of kill spells, you get Sarulf on the battlefield early. Also run a bunch of protections, because why not? You get Sarulf on the battlefield early, and all of a sudden, as you're killing your opponent's stuff, your commander is upticking, and you're dealing commander damage to the other players at the table as you're clearing paths for Sarulf to be attacking in on them. And then if any one player gets too big for their britches, you can just pop this on upkeep and blow everything up. Now, one of the major downsides with that kind of game plan is the timing restriction. Sarulf doesn't have the ability that says, you know, at instant speed, remove number of counters to exile all the things. If that was on this card would be phenomenal. It would be huge, frankly. Like, it would have found a home in some kind of, you know, Sultai or Abzan control deck that would have existed in Standard when Sarulf was in Standard. But it really didn't. Or, you know, any decks that were leveraging those colors maybe had like one or two of this card. Like, I have seen Sarulf hit the battlefield in 60 card construction formats, and every time it feels underwhelming. This is a card that reads like it should be incredibly powerful, but in practice doesn't quite get there, which is kind of wild because it is also just a 3/3 for 3 in a relevant creature type. Like, there is support for wolves. I mean, if you want to go Jund, you could do all kinds of like wolf shenanigans, and Sarulf could fit in that kind of a deck very comfortably, and it could be pretty powerful. Now, a lot of the time with wolves, if you're going the werewolf route, you generally want to go Groll, because green and red have the most like hasty werewolf threats. So that's a good way to go. So having to splash black for Sarulf probably isn't worth it. And those decks tend to want to end the game quickly because, you know, in proper aggro fashion. Whereas Sarulf is really more of a controlling grinder. Like, this wants the game to go long so it can grow and grow and grow and potentially wreck your opponent's day. Now, note also, you exile each other non-land permanent with converted mana costs, you know, less than or equal to this. Mana value, I should say. So it hits your stuff too. You need to be aware of that. You have to be very sensitive to that, because if, you know, if you have a large board state yourself, this is going to hurt you real bad, which is a bummer. Yeah. Also, you do need to have one or more +1/+1 counters. You can't just auto kill tokens just cuz. I wish you could. That would be so good. But yeah, so Sarulf Realm Eater, the card is awkward is the problem. The effects are all very powerful. Both of these effects independently are strong. So whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, whenever any permanent dies, you get a +1/+1 counter. They crack a treasure token, boom, counter. They crack a blood token, boom, counter. They activate their Blood Tithe Harvester to try to kill one of your things. Boom, counter. Like, there's so much. Any kind of sacrifice effects, you kill their thing, boom, counter. Like, the card, like, Sarulf is capable of growing quickly and becoming very, very big. And we're in black and green. I mean, we're in a situation where if you're, like, these colors have access to fight spells and kill spells. It's not hard to blow up your opponent's creatures. It's just not. And so if they have creatures, Sarulf is going to get big if you've built the deck around that. And the ability to remove the counters from Sarulf, that gives you that emergency release valve. Now, there is another challenge, another issue with that ability. It's all or nothing. So if throughout the course of the game, like, let's say I have a Toxtrol online, like I have a 7-drop sitting on the battlefield. If throughout the course of the game, my opponents have sacrificed stuff and I've killed stuff and Sarulf has like 9 counters on it, but they have chump blockers, let's say. So, like, I'm not getting in for damage. So those +1/+1 counters aren't quite getting there. Maybe they're not quite doing it for me. Although if I have a Toxtrol, that's probably going to get rid of chump blockers. But let's assume for this hypothetical, they're blanking Sarulf's attack in some way. The upkeep rolls around. I don't have the opportunity. I cannot remove 6 of the 9 counters that I have on Sarulf. I can't. I don't have that choice. I have to either remove all 9 or none at all. And so if I fire this and blow up my opponent's board, I lose my Toxtrol and it goes to exile. So if I'm doing any kind of reanimation shenanigans, I don't have it anymore. Like, I need to somehow sacrifice or destroy Toxtrol before triggering this if I want Toxtrol to not get blown out. So it's awkward. It's just awkward. But I love the idea and I love the design. And Sarulf is a powerful character who's capable of doing amazing, huge, world-shattering things. Now, the mechanics on Sarulf Realm Eater from Kaldheim don't quite line up in a competitive way. But we don't know if Sarulf is going to be getting a card in March of the Machine. I'm assuming Sarulf probably will not get a specific card in March of the Machine. I'm assuming they're going to be somehow represented holistically on Kaldheim's, because we have this art, which is like clearly, a scenic shot. So honestly, also, there are just so many legends throughout all the different planes. And if they gave a single card to all of them, March of the Machine would be like 2,000 cards. And like, they just can't reasonably print that, which is part of the reason I'm sure they're doing the team ups. So I don't expect to see a Sarulf card. I want to see what a completed Sarulf looks like, because I'm kind of terrified of it, and I want to see what it can do. I think we're far more likely to see an individual Toski card, because that squirrel is so well loved. It's funny, when that image hit Twitter, it's just a whole swarm of people going, "Oh my goodness, not Toski!" Meanwhile, Sarulf is like, "I'm here too." Like, no? Okay. I find that kind of funny. But yeah, so Toski's clearly the fan favorite there. And Wizards, they know these things. So, in any event, Sarulf the Realm Eater, a cool card, cool character. I'm much more intrigued by what they do with the character moving forward. And I don't know, I would like to see individual cards for Sarulf. But that said, however, we don't know how March of the Machine is going to pan out as of this recording. And I fully anticipate that a lot of these characters are going to be completely wrecked, and we won't see them in this kind of style. I don't think we're just going to see a card of Sarulf moving forward. I don't know what that means. I don't know, but there's been a lot of speculation and a lot of talk, including from, Wizards employees, saying that everything is going to change after March of the Machine. So, with so few details, I don't want to go into too much speculation, but we know, or can reasonably infer, that Sarulf has been completed. And so they've been Phyrexianized, and we shall see where this goes. So anyway, thank you so much for checking out the episode. I appreciate it very, very much. And thank you also for the request for a Sarulf episode. I appreciate that very much. If you have cards that you really enjoy that you would like to hear me ramble about, please post them in the comments on YouTube. I'm much more likely to see them there. You can also hit me up on my Discord server. There is a link to my link tree in the description on the podcast, as well as YouTube. So feel free to hit me up there. And I would love to talk about your favorite card for 10 minutes or more, depending on how the conversation goes. Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you on the next one.